Night owls. Scary Christmas.
Alan Robson with you. The present moment I've moved into one of the larger antechambers. You can probably tell that I'm not in a terribly echoey room. But I'm going to be telling you about some of the stories from across the globe. On every inch of planet Earth, there's been death, there's been pestilence, plague, murder. And certain places will be forever stained by what's gone on there before. Where you are right now, people will have died. And on a modern and fairly affluent housing estate on the outskirts of Newcastle upon Tyne, there was just an ordinary house, less than 50 years old. Central heating, 4 bedrooms, 2 en suite, very nice, nothing that special. Yet during the Jacobite uprising, the house that had stood there before had held Scottish rebels. The English king had been tipped off that the Finnan family were not loyal to the crown, so the house was attacked. Over 40 wounded Scots, Thomas Finnan, his wife Maggie, and their 5 children, one a baby of less than 4 months, were hacked to death in that house. Hundreds of years later, another house was built. Whilst Ponteland was covered with woodland and fields, the house was owned by a rich landowner who spent most of his time in London. So a guy called Anthony Mone was allowed to live there, provided he maintained the property and supervised the land as an overseer. On one of his trips to London, he was introduced to a number of French businessmen, and one imposed upon him to help a young girl that he knew. Marie Pelletier had escaped to England following the death of her husband, a convicted highwayman, Joseph Pelletier, the very first person to die using the guillotine on the 25th of April, 1792. So Mone took her in until she was found a place to live by her French sponsors. However, events would precede them. Mone fell in love with the attractive Parisienne. Unfortunately, her feelings were not reciprocated, and this led to one night of evil stamping itself on the already bloody landscape. One night, Mone forced his way into her bedroom and raped her, leaving her beaten and petrified. He returned to the main hall and began drinking brandy. In celebration of the lesson he'd just given that ungrateful wrench, within an hour he was drunk. He probably never heard the bare feet of Marie Pelletier creeping up behind him with a decorative axe she had taken down from the wall. Using both hands, she swung that axe over her head and slammed down onto his with such force it split his skull in 2, spattering the walls with blood, bone and brain matter. Then, knowing she'd committed murder, she wrote a suicide note and then hanged herself in her bedroom from a chandelier. The house was bulldozed, small holding was erected, and a local farm worker, Thomas McAnally, moved in. He was Irish, greatly loved by everybody in the Ponteland area. All was well until the 13th of December 1867, when a barrel of gunpowder was used to demolish the wall of Clerkenwell prison in a bid to rescue an Irish prisoner. Not only did the wall explode, but it wrecked a row of houses opposite, killing 12 people and injuring 123 others. The bombers, calling themselves the Fenian Brotherhood, claimed responsibility. Well, McNally regularly described himself as a Fenian in fun, but one of the families wiped out by the bomb had originally been from Ponteland, and seeking revenge, a gang of locals kicked down the farm worker's door and they beat him to death with clubs. The house was burnt to the ground with McNally's wife and 2 children in it. And then, in Ponteland, a street of houses was built, and these homes still remain. But the area that they're on is said to be cursed, and it's suffered a number of severe tragedies. Children stillborn, a higher rate of cancers, leukemia, heart attacks, and terminal illness. It's as if the sickness of what's happened in the past lingers on. There have been several suicides, self-mutilation, domestic assaults and child abuse. Behind the expensive curtains, much has happened that few dare speak of. But one of the houses in particular is infested with evil. The curtains seem to move as if by unseen hands. You can hear footsteps walking across the rooms, a creaking from the attic, the lights flicker, and any child that enters the house feels nauseous, as if invisible fingers are pushed down their throat and they try to get out as quick as they can. The house, owned by an elderly couple, love their home, but they know that evil things lurk in every shadow. It's our home, and at our age, where else can we go? They've asked not to be named, but showed photographs of dark shapes, white glowing balls of light hanging above their bed, and even cutlery and dishes flying through the air. On a videotape, they show a kitchen running amok, plates crashing, the microwave oven not plugged into the wall, heating up and pinging, cupboard doors banging, crashing, building up in volume, and then just stopping as swiftly as they began. The owner says it's just an ordinary house. I'm sure most places have just as bloody a history. The North Country was fought over in wars over thousands of years, massacres, the Black Death, murder, betrayals, and half of Ponteeland's built on an old cemetery. We should expect this type of thing. It's just an ordinary house, like yours, probably. He's got recordings on video of the kitchen being trashed, and suddenly it stops. Have a listen. This is what happens in their house pretty much on a daily basis. Well, it's going to be an incredible night tonight where we will experience together a whole range of strange and different noises that people all over the world have captured on tape. Going to start with a very simple one, but you're going to have to keep your wits about you. Listen very carefully. Is this a child asking someone for help? Is she saying, "Help me"? Now, in the United States of America, you will regularly hear of some horrific murders. One very, very famous one happened in Villisca in Iowa. It was known as the Villisca Axe Murder. In June the 10th, 1912, 2 adults and 6 children were found brutally murdered in their beds in the small Midwestern town. Now, what you have to do is think about those small towns that we have dotted around, where pretty much everybody